This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices steadied on Tuesday after falling 2% in the previous session, with investors keeping a close eye on peace talks to end Russia's war in Ukraine, concerns about ample supply and a looming decision on U.S. interest rates. Brent crude futures edged 3 cents higher to $62.52 a barrel at 13:17 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude gained 4 cents at $58.92 a barrel. Both contracts fell by more than $1 a barrel on Monday after Iraq restored production at Lukoil's West Kurna 2 oil field, one of the world's largest.
Russia may increase liquefied petroleum gas supplies to China by 40% to 1.125 million metric tons next year, Petromarket Consultancy said, as Moscow pivots to the east. Russia has redirected its oil flows away from Europe to China and India in reaction to Western sanctions over its 2022 invasion of Ukraine. European Union sanctions against its LPG took effect on December 20, 2024, and Russia is now also seeking to boost its exports of natural gas and LPG to China.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Crude oil exports by Saudi Arabia to China are set to touch a 3-month high in January after the kingdom slashed its official selling prices to Asia, sources said on Tuesday. State oil company Saudi Aramco will ship about 49.5 million barrels to China next month, or about 1.60 million barrels per day, a tally of allocations to Chinese refiners showed. The allocation volume marks a jump from the previous 2 months, when it remained under 40 million barrels, and is the highest since October, according to Reuters records.
The European Union reached a deal on Tuesday to scale back its corporate sustainability laws, after months of pressure from companies and governments including the US and Qatar. The changes agreed by EU governments and the European Parliament would weaken such rules for a large majority of businesses now covered. They follow criticism from some industries that EU red tape and strict regulation hindered competitiveness with foreign rivals. This agreement brings historic cost reductions, Parliament negotiator Jørgen Warborn said. He noted that the cuts went further than those initially proposed by the European Commission, which it had estimated would reduce companies' administrative costs by €4.5 billion. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Copper prices slipped on Tuesday on profit-taking from a blistering rally, worries about the prospect of slower U.S. interest rate cuts and concern over Chinese demand. Benchmark 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange shed 1.3% to $11,490 a metric ton by 15:15 GMT, having touched a record peak of $11,771 on Monday. LME copper has surged 31% this year, with about 10% of that in the past several weeks.
Iron ore futures prices extended their declines on Tuesday, as the big Simandou project in Guinea, West Africa, shipped its first ore, raising the prospect of more supply at a time when demand in top consumer China is set to decline amid falling steel output. The most traded iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange closed daytime trading down 0.72% at 757 yuan and 50 fen, $107.22, a metric ton. It touched its lowest since July 10 at 750 yuan earlier in the session and headed for a 5th straight session of losses.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Cocoa futures on the ICE exchange hit a 1-month high on Tuesday as concerns over prospects for the tail end of the main crop in top grower Ivory Coast escalated, while robusta coffee steadied above 2-1/2-month lows. London cocoa rose 3.2% to 4,252 a metric ton at 14:57 GMT, having hit a 1-month high of 4,278. About 85,000 tons of cocoa were delivered between December 1 and 7 to ports in Ivory Coast, equal to the same week of the previous season, exporters estimated. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.